The word indigenous was not actually introduced by the University of Jamaica. It was not introduced by the curriculum or any of the general mainstream educational circle. And that is why the word is given up. We are not being able to properly identify the characteristics of the word. Now, it became important in Jamaica because of the Maroons. It started out because the Maroons leased their land to England. We were told in colonial information that the land was plundered by England, but that is not true. Now, to understand the importance and the meaning of indigenous people is to understand that indigenous people has a history by law that covers approximately 350 years. The Jamaican society was officiated and bestowed by the United Nations as Indigenous People Community in 1991. Now, how we became indigenous is still a very questionable situation, but a lot of folks are very happy to say, quote unquote, I'm indigenous. Oh, we are the indigenous people. And you hear all of that. It's nice to say that you are. But among the people that is called indigenous, there is not one person who can explain the characteristics and how and why it was bestowed to Jamaica. Now, it was bestowed to Jamaica because the treaty that was signed in Jamaica, no one have ever seen it. Now this is surprising. A lot of persons make conclusions. I don't like the Maroons because the treaty says this, the treaty says that. I'm sorry. No one have ever seen the treaty. The reason why, because the treaty was taken back to England by two lawyers, two esquires. These two lawyers brought it back to England. Why? It was brought back to England because England was fighting Jamaica for too long. And when you fight a country for more than 99 years, it would mean that your country would lose the land rights to the other country that you are fighting for too long. Well, that's the importance of the treaty. So England fought the Maroons. The first 50 years was the longest ceasefire in the world. So that is why Jamaican army is known to be the best in the world, because of statistics, not because of size. Good. Because we had the longest ceasefire in the world, 50 years. When the first 50 years, Kojo, Iligimo Kojo of the Maroons, became the new leader, the captain of the war. People say Maroons are not intelligent and was not educated. I'm going to point something out to you. Iligimo Kojo actually what? Stopped the fighting. Because if you fight any army for more than 50 years, you as the head of the army can be brought to world court, military court. So we are all intelligent people. See? What we did, we started the war again for 48 more years and tricked them because they thought they would have conquered us before the 98 years, before the 99 years. And so England was forced to send two lawyers immediately to the feet of Iligimo Kojo to sign the treaty. What is the treaty? The treaty is an official document that proves to the world that the British who attacked the Maroons is now stop fighting. The treaty meant the end of the war. If the treaty was not brought to England, England would have lost England, France, and Ireland to the Maroons.
Wow.
So, we used diplomacy by signing the treaty so they could save their country, so we could save ours. First time you heard that. Now, the treaty, that is why it was brought back to England. England had to take it to the World Court. At that time, there was no League of Nations, but there was a World Court. There was an organization who kept all these documents. And so the documents were turned over to the League of Nations. The League of Nations turned the document over to the United Nations. See? Now, what that meant? It meant that when they told us that we got an independence, that there was no independence. It was Queen Victoria Jubilee meant that she have overstayed on the land, and she also made a jubilee, which is a documentary expression to the world to say that I am not continuing the lease. So the land after the treaty, England came back and leased two major lease. Listen, lease. The lease was one in Portland by Governor Portland. What's the real name of Portland? Anybody in the house, what's the real name of Portland?
Nobody knows. That's
Hey,
Portland.
what's the name of Portland? The real name?
Oh, it's Signature.
Great. The name is Moortown.
Wow.
So Moortown was leased to Governor Portland, and that's why it got the name Portland. Huh? Edward George Trelawney leased the Trelawney side, and that was on Ferry Town. So those two major leases. So you telling me the lease doesn't have an end? Well, really, England decided to perpetuate the lease and tricked us to talk about an independence, but there was no independence by law. The reason why the Queen of England did not come to Jamaica. So that's a fundamental part of the law. If the Queen was not here, the head of the monarchical power was not here to hand over the power, then there was no independence. See? So are we talking sense or not?